Jack Mitchell's life revolves around two things: his small Nebraska farm and his two young daughters. Every morning he wakes up before sunrise, hoping to make enough from repairs and odd jobs to keep food on the table. When a woman's tractor breaks down near his land, Jack fixes it without thinking twice. It's just what neighbors do. The next day, the quiet morning sky fills with the roar of engines as a private jet lands in his field. The woman from yesterday steps out, but she's not just a farmer with a broken tractor. She's one of the wealthiest people in America. As she walks toward his house, Jack realizes his simple act of kindness might have just changed everything. But can two people from such different worlds find a way to bridge the gap between them? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The grandfather clock in Jack Mitchell's farmhouse kitchen showed 4:30 a.m. when his calloused hand reached out to silence the alarm. He didn't need it anymore, hadn't for years. But Sarah had given it to him before she passed, insisting that someone as stubborn as him needed a backup plan for everything, even waking up. His bare feet touched the cool wooden floors, and he paused at his bedroom door, listening for the gentle breathing of his daughters in their rooms down the hall. Emma and Sophie, his reason for everything. The floorboard outside Sophie's room creaked as he peered in, watching his 8-year-old daughter clutch the stuffed horse she'd named Lightning, her dark curls spread across the pillow, just like her mother's used to. In Emma's room, his 12-year-old slept surrounded by books and science magazines, a small desk lamp still on from her late-night reading. Jack smiled, clicking it off. Emma had Sarah's curiosity, that endless desire to understand how things worked. He'd found her last week with his tractor manual, methodically highlighting parts she didn't understand so she could ask him about them later. At his dresser, Jack paused at the photograph propped against the mirror. It was taken 6 years ago, just months before the accident. Sarah sat in their porch swing, Emma on one side, Sophie barely more than a toddler on the other. All three, laughing at something he'd said behind the camera. The morning sun caught Sarah's wedding ring, creating a small rainbow on Sophie's cheek. Jack touched the image gently, then straightened his shoulders. Time to get moving. Downstairs, bills spread across the kitchen table caught his eye. The red past due stamp on the irrigation company's envelope seemed to glow in the pre-dawn darkness. Next to it lay a letter from the bank about his equipment loan. Jack had built a reputation as the guy who could fix anything with wheels or an engine, but lately the repair jobs weren't coming in fast enough to keep up with the farm's expenses. The coffee maker gurgled to life. He'd prepared it the night before, another of Sarah's habits he couldn't shake. She'd always said preparation was half the battle. The other half, she'd add with a wink, is pure stubbornness, which you've got in spades, Jack Mitchell. He was halfway through his first cup when soft footsteps on the stairs announced Emma's arrival. She appeared in the kitchen doorway, already dressed in jeans and one of his old flannel shirts she'd claimed as her own. "Morning, Dad," she yawned, reaching for the juice in the fridge. "Need help with morning chores?" Jack checked his watch. "You should get another hour of sleep. School day." "Can't sleep anyway. Too excited about the science fair next week." She poured her juice, then gave him a sidelong glance. "Besides, you look like you could use the help." "That obvious, huh?" Emma shrugged, so much her mother's daughter in that gesture. "The bills are still on the table. You only leave them out when you're worried." Jack gathered the papers quickly, tucking them into a drawer. "Nothing for you to worry about, Em. Adult stuff." "I'm not a kid anymore, Dad. I know things are tight." She came around the table, wrapping her arms around his waist in a quick hug. "But we'll figure it out. We always do." The sound of small feet running down the stairs interrupted them. Sophie burst into the kitchen, still in her pajamas, Lightning the horse tucked under one arm. "You started chores without me," she accused, bottom lip quivering. "Haven't even put my boots on yet, Soph," Jack assured her, scooping her up for a proper hug. "But you know the rule about morning chores." No pajamas in the barn, Sophie recited with a dramatic sigh. Fine, but wait for me. She thundered back upstairs, lightning bouncing along behind her. Emma watched her go with the patient tolerance of an older sister. I'll get started on feeding, she offered. Pretty sure the chickens are tired of waiting. Jack watched her head out to the mudroom for her boots, pride and worry warring in his chest. His girls were growing up too fast, taking on too much responsibility too young. But they were also growing up strong, resilient, kind, everything Sarah had wanted for them. The bills in the drawer seemed to weigh on him, but he pushed the worry aside. Right now, his daughters needed him focused on the day ahead. The rest would sort itself out. It had to. He pulled on his work boots, the leather cracked but still sturdy, just like everything else on the farm, holding together through sheer determination and careful maintenance. Outside, the eastern sky was just beginning to lighten, promising another beautiful Nebraska morning. Emma's voice drifted from the chicken coop, singing something he couldn't quite make out, while Sophie's boots clattered on the porch behind him as she rushed to join them. Just another morning on the Mitchell farm. Jack had no way of knowing. It would be the last normal morning they'd have for a very long time. The morning unfolded like any other until Jack heard the distinctive sound of an engine in distress. He was cleaning tools in his workshop when the coughing, sputtering noise echoed across his fields. Years of experience told him it was a tractor, probably a John Deere 8R series by the sound of it, and it wasn't going to make it much further. He stepped out of the workshop, wiping his hands on a rag, and spotted the machine limping along the access road that bordered his property. Even from this distance he could see smoke rising from the engine compartment. Not good. The tractor rolled to a stop just past his fence line. A figure climbed down from the cab. A woman in work clothes and boots, her dark hair tied back in a practical ponytail. She opened the engine housing, then stepped back as a cloud of steam escaped. Jack grabbed his toolbox without thinking. Neighbor in need was neighbor indeed, as his father used to say. Having trouble? He called out as he approached. The woman turned, and Jack's step faltered slightly. She was younger than he'd expected, maybe early 30s, with an elegance that seemed at odds with her casual attire. Her jeans and work shirt might have been chosen to blend in, but they were clearly new, the creases still visible. I'm afraid so, she replied, her voice carrying a hint of embarrassment. I was told this was a reliable machine, but she gestured at the steam still rising from the engine. Mind if I take a look? Jack set his toolbox down. I'm Jack Mitchell. This is my farm you broke down next to, so at least you picked a convenient spot. Alexandra. She offered her hand, then seemed to think better of it, noticing the grease. Stains on her palm from the engine. Sorry, and thank you. I wasn't sure what I was going to do out here. Jack was already examining the engine, his experienced eyes scanning for the problem. New to farming? Is it that obvious? She laughed, a warm, genuine sound that made Jack smile despite himself. I just acquired some land about 20 miles east. Thought I should learn how everything works firsthand. Jack nodded absently, his attention caught by something in the engine. Ah, here's your problem. Coolant leak. Must have been developing for a while. He pointed to a hairline crack in one of the hoses. See this? When it finally split, all your coolant drained out. Engine overheated. Alexandra leaned in to look where he was pointing, and Jack caught a faint scent of something that definitely wasn't farm-appropriate perfume. There was something else about her, too, a sharp intelligence in her eyes as she studied the engine, like she was memorizing every detail. Can it be fixed? She asked. Got some spare hose in my workshop that should do the trick. Won't take more than an hour. He straightened up. That is, if you don't mind waiting? Not at all. She glanced at her watch, a gesture that struck Jack as oddly formal for someone in work clothes. I appreciate the help. While Jack worked, Alexandra asked questions about the engine, the farm, the area. Her questions were precise, showing more business acumen than agricultural knowledge. But there was something genuine in her interest, especially when she asked about his daughters after spotting Sophie's bike propped against the workshop wall. Single father? she asked, her tone carefully neutral. Widower. Jack focused on tightening a clamp. 6 years now. I'm sorry. The words were simple, but sincere. It must be challenging. Running a farm and raising 2 girls alone. Jack shrugged, uncomfortable with the sympathy. We manage. Emma and Sophie, they're good kids, strong like their mother. As he worked, Jack noticed a few other things about Alexandra that seemed out of place. Her hands, though smudged with grease now, showed no signs of regular manual labor. In that watch she kept checking, he'd repaired enough machinery to recognize quality engineering when he saw it. That timepiece probably cost more than his monthly mortgage payment. But there was something disarming about her directness, the way she listened intently to his explanations about the engine repair. When he finished and the engine turned over smoothly, her smile was genuine. What do I owe you? She reached for her back pocket. Jack waved her off. Nothing, like I said, neighbor helping neighbor. But really? He closed his toolbox with finality. Just remember me if you have any other mechanical troubles out east. Alexandra studied him for a moment, then nodded. Thank you, Jack Mitchell. You may regret making that offer. As she climbed back into the tractor cab, something glinted on the ground. Jack spotted a small item half hidden in the grass, an elegant silver money clip with the initials AW engraved in flowing script, but by the time he picked it up, the tractor was already moving away. Jack turned the clip over in his hands, noting its weight and craftsmanship. Definitely not standard farmer equipment. He pocketed it, figuring he'd run into her again sooner or later. After all, how many Alexandra W's could there be in the area? Watching the tractor disappear down the road, Jack had no idea that this simple repair job had just set in motion events that would change his life forever. Sometimes the biggest moments arrive quietly, disguised as just another day's work. It would be 24 hours before he understood exactly who Alexandra was. And by then, nothing would ever be the same. Jack was checking the irrigation lines in the eastern field when the sound started. A low, distant rumble that seemed out of place in the morning quiet. Emma, who was helping him map out repairs, looked up first. Dad, is that? The rumble grew to a roar. Through gaps in the clouds, a sleek white jet emerged, flying impossibly low over their fields. Jack grabbed Emma's shoulder instinctively, pulling her back as the aircraft banked sharply, displaying the elegant cursive W emblazoned on its tail. Something's wrong, Emma said, but her voice held excitement rather than fear. They can't land here, can they? But that's exactly what the jet was doing. With practiced precision, it lined up with the longest stretch of Jack's access road, the same road where he'd fixed Alexandra's tractor yesterday. The landing gear descended, and Jack watched in disbelief as the aircraft touched down on his property, kicking up clouds of dust as it rolled to a stop. "Sophie!" Emma shouted toward the house. "Sophie, come quick! There's a plane!" Jack's younger daughter burst out of the house, screen door slamming behind her. She skidded to a halt beside them, mouth open in amazement. "Is it for us?" Sophie asked, bouncing on her toes. "Did someone bring us a plane?" Before Jack could answer, the jet's door opened, extending an elegant set of stairs. 2 men in dark suits emerged first, scanning the area with professional detachment. Then Alexandra appeared in the doorway. Gone were yesterday's work clothes. Today she wore a tailored business suit that probably cost more than Jack's truck. Her dark hair was styled perfectly, and that elegant watch gleamed on her wrist. She descended the stairs with practiced grace, then paused, taking in their stunned expressions. "Good morning, Jack," she called out, walking toward them. "I hope you don't mind the dramatic entrance, but I needed to speak with you, and my schedule today is rather tight." "Who is she?" Emma whispered, tugging at his sleeve. Jack was saved from answering by the sound of vehicles approaching. 3 pickup trucks were racing down the road toward his farm, trailing dust clouds of their own. He recognized Tom Wilson's red Ford in the lead. News traveled fast in small towns, and a private jet landing on a farm was big news indeed. "Perhaps we should continue this conversation inside," Alexandra suggested, glancing at the approaching trucks. "I believe I owe you an explanation." Jack nodded numbly, ushering his daughters toward the house. Emma kept looking back at the jet, while Sophie skipped ahead, chattering excitedly about their special visitor. In the kitchen, Jack's mind caught up with the situation enough to remember his manners. "Can I offer you some coffee?" "That would be lovely." Alexandra settled into a chair at their worn kitchen table, as if it were a boardroom seat. The morning sun through the window caught her bracelet, sending prismatic patterns dancing across the ceiling. "You're her," Emma blurted suddenly. Jack turned to see his daughter holding yesterday's newspaper, pointing at a photo on the business page. Alexandra Wellington, CEO of Wellington Industries. Jack nearly dropped the coffee pot. Wellington Industries was one of the largest agricultural technology companies in the world. They manufactured everything from tractors to GPS systems for automated farming. Their newest headquarters in Chicago had made national news last year for its revolutionary green design. Guilty as charged. Alexandra accepted the coffee with a small smile. "Though I prefer Alexandra, especially from people who've done me a favor." "The tractor," Jack said slowly. "That was a test?" "Not exactly." She reached into her briefcase and withdrew a familiar silver money clip. "I believe you found this yesterday. Thank you for not chasing after me to return it. It would have ruined the experiment." "Experiment?" "I've learned that the best way to understand a community is to become part of it, even briefly. That tractor really did break down. I'm not that good an actress, but I chose to handle it myself, rather than send someone from my team." She paused, studying Jack over her coffee cup. "I needed to see firsthand how local farmers interact with our equipment, how they handle repairs, what their daily challenge is." "Ah, and what did you learn?" Jack asked, unable to keep a hint of challenge from his voice. "That our latest models are still too complicated for field repairs. That we're not providing adequate replacement parts to rural areas." She set down her cup. "And that there are still people in this world who will help a stranger without expecting anything in return." Sophie, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, suddenly piped up. "Does this mean we're rich now?" "Sophie!" Jack and Emma exclaimed together. But Alexandra laughed, that same warm, genuine laugh from yesterday. "No, sweetheart, but I do have a business proposition for your father, if he's willing to hear me out." Through the window, Jack could see more trucks arriving. Tom Wilson and half the town were probably gathering outside, drawn by the spectacle of the jet. His quiet morning had turned into something from a movie, and judging by Alexandra's expression, this was just the beginning. "I'm listening," he said, pulling out a chair. Whatever was coming, his life had already changed the moment the jet touched down on his farm. Alexandra placed a sleek leather portfolio on the kitchen table, her manicured fingers tracing its edge. Outside, the murmur of neighbors gathering had grown louder, but inside the farmhouse, time seemed suspended. "Yesterday," she began, "you did something that most people wouldn't. You helped a stranger without asking for payment or recognition. More importantly, you showed genuine expertise with our equipment." "Just basic mechanics," Jack said, watching as Emma leaned forward in her chair, completely captivated by Alexandra's presence. Even Sophie had stopped fidgeting. "Basic mechanics?" Alexandra raised an eyebrow. "You diagnosed and repaired a hydraulic cooling system failure in under an hour using improvised parts. Our service centers typically quote 2 days for that repair." She opened the portfolio and withdrew a document, sliding it across the table. Jack stared at the Wellington Industries letterhead, the formal language swimming before his eyes. "We're developing a new division," Alexandra continued, "rural service and innovation. The idea is to bridge the gap between our engineering team and the farmers who actually use our equipment. We need someone who understands both worlds, someone who can tell us what works in the field, not just in the lab." Jack glanced at the salary figure on the page and nearly choked on his coffee. Emma, reading over his shoulder, let out a small gasp. "That's generous," he managed. "It's fair market value for the expertise we need." Alexandra's tone was matter-of-fact. The position would be based in Chicago, but with regular travel to rural areas for field testing and community outreach. We'd provide housing, education expenses for the girls. Chicago? Jack interrupted. Ms. Wellington? Alexandra. Please. Alexandra, I can't just uproot my daughters, leave the farm. Dad! Emma protested. Can't we at least think about it? Sophie looked between them, her lower lip trembling slightly. Would we have to leave Lightning? And the chickens? Alexandra leaned forward, her expression softening as she addressed Sophie. The housing we have in mind includes a small garden, plenty of room for Lightning. As for the farm, she turned back to Jack, we're not asking you to sell. In fact, we'd like to use it as a test site for new equipment. You'd maintain ownership, but we'd handle the operations while you're in Chicago. Jack stood up abruptly, needing space to think. The walls of his kitchen seemed to be closing in, the weight of opportunity pressing against his chest. Through the window he could see Tom Wilson gesturing at the jet, a small crowd of neighbors nodding along to whatever theory he was spinning. This is my home, he said quietly. My wife and I built this life together. The girls, their memories of their mother are here. Dad, Emma said, her voice unusually gentle. Mom always said home is where family is, remember? Not the building or the land. Jack turned, surprised by the tears in his daughter's eyes. She looked so much like Sarah in that moment, the same determined set to her jaw, the same clear-eyed wisdom. You've been worried about money, Emma continued. I've seen the bills, and this could be amazing for all of us. I could take real science classes, I could have a garden, Sophie interrupted, with flowers for Mom. Alexandra watched the exchange silently, but Jack caught something in her expression, a flicker of understanding maybe, even empathy. She stood, smoothing her suit jacket with practiced grace. The offer isn't time-sensitive, she said. Take a week to think it over, discuss it as a family. She pulled a business card from her portfolio. My private number is on the back. Call me any time with questions. As she turned to leave, she paused. Jack, one more thing. The real reason I came back today wasn't just to make this offer. It was to thank you for yesterday. Not for fixing the tractor, but for treating me like a person, not a position. That's rarer than you might think. The screen door creaked as she stepped onto the porch, and immediately the murmur of neighbors grew louder. Jack heard her security team coordinating their departure, the jet's engines beginning their pre-start checks. He looked down at the contract again, at the number that could change their lives. Emma's hand slipped into his, squeezing gently. Mom would want us to be brave, she whispered. Jack pulled both his daughters close, breathing in the familiar scent of their shampoo, of home. The contract on the table seemed to pulse with possibility and danger in equal measure. Outside, the jet's engines roared to life, and Jack felt the sound vibrate through his bones, through the very foundation of his carefully constructed world. Change was coming, whether he was ready or not. The only question was whether he would meet it on his terms or let it pass him by. The farm deed sat on Jack's desk that night, its edges worn from years of careful filing and renewal. The house was quiet. Emma and Sophie had finally gone to bed after hours of excited chatter about Chicago, science museums, and city adventures. Their enthusiasm made his hesitation feel heavier somehow. He opened his bottom drawer, pulling out Sarah's old recipe box. Inside, beneath the handwritten cards for pot roast and apple pie, lay a letter she'd written during her last hospital. Stay. He'd only read it once before, the night after her funeral. My dearest Jack, he read softly, Sarah's familiar handwriting bringing her voice to his mind. If you're reading this again, you're probably overthinking something important. You always did have a talent for that. A soft knock interrupted his reading. Dad. Emma stood in the doorway, wearing her mother's old college sweatshirt as a nightgown. Can't sleep either. Come here, kiddo. He patted the worn leather chair beside his desk. Emma curled into it, tucking her feet underneath her, just like Sarah used to do. Mum's letter? She asked, spotting the paper in his hands. Jack nodded. Want to hear some of it? Emma leaned forward, resting her chin on her knees. In the dim lamplight, she looked older than her 12 years. Jack, he continued reading, I know you'll want to keep everything exactly the same after I'm gone. You'll think that's what's best for the girls, that stability is what they need. But life isn't stable, my love. It's wild and wonderful and sometimes terrifying, but it's meant to be lived fully. She knew you pretty well, Emma said quietly. The farm is our home, Jack read. But home isn't just a place. It's the love we carry with us, the memories we make, the chances we take together. Don't let fear of change keep you from living, Jack. Don't let it keep our girls from growing. The words blurred slightly, and Jack had to blink hard before continuing. I've loved watching you teach Emma about engines, seeing Sophie learn to gather eggs. But there's a whole world out there waiting for them, for you. Promise me you won't hide from it forever. A floorboard creaked, and they looked up to find Sophie in the doorway, lightning clutched to her chest. I heard voices, she said. Are you reading Mom's letter? Jack held out his arm, and Sophie rushed over, climbing into his lap despite being almost too big for it now. She smelled of sleep, and the lavender shampoo Sarah had always used. What else does Mom say? She asked. The girls will be amazing, Jack read, his voice rough. They already are. Emma has your mind for puzzles and my stubbornness. Heaven help you with that combination. And Sophie has your heart, that incredible capacity for joy that made me fall in love with you in the first place. She got that right, Emma said, reaching over to tug one of Sophie's curls. Let them fly, Jack. Let them discover who they are beyond the boundaries we've set, and let yourself discover who you can be too. That's my last request, that you all keep living, keep growing, keep loving. The farm will always be here, but life is waiting everywhere. All my love, Sarah. Silence filled the office as the words settled around them. Sophie's small hand found his, squeezing tight. Dad, she said, I'm scared about Chicago, but I'm excited too. Is that okay? That's exactly okay, Soph. He kissed the top of her head. I feel the same way. Mum would want us to go, Emma said. It wasn't a question. Jack looked at the deed on his desk, then at the faces of his daughters, Sarah's eyes in Emma's determined expression, Sarah's smile hiding in Sophie's hopeful one. You know what the hardest part of being brave is? He asked them. It's not facing the big moments, it's all the little moments afterward, when you have to keep being brave every single day. Good thing there's 3 of us then, Emma said. We can take turns being brave. Sophie nodded solemnly. I'll be brave on Mondays and Wednesdays. Jack laughed, the sound breaking the last of his resistance. I'll call Alexandra in the morning, he said. But we do this as a family. All decisions, all changes, we face them together. Deal, deal, his daughters chorused. Later, after they'd gone back to bed, Jack sat alone with Sarah's letter. Outside his window, moonlight silvered the fields they'd worked together. The life they'd built, but for the first time in 6 years, he wasn't seeing just what he might lose by leaving. He was starting to see what they all might gain. He folded the letter carefully, tucking it into his shirt pocket close to his heart. Okay, Sarah, he whispered. We'll be brave. We'll fly. Just keep watching over us, wherever this leads. A warm breeze stirred the curtains, carrying the scent of summer grass and possibility. Tomorrow would bring change, but tonight, in this moment, Jack finally felt at peace with that fact. Sometimes, he realized, letting go of one dream was the only way to let another one begin. The first-class plane tickets arrived by courier the next morning, nestled in a Wellington Industries welcome package. 3 glossy folders contained housing details, school information, and employment contracts. Jack spread them across the kitchen table while Emma and Sophie examined their tickets with awe. Look, they gave us our own tablets, Sophie exclaimed, pulling out sleek devices from their welcome bags. And they've got all kinds of pictures of Chicago. 2 weeks, Jack said, reviewing the timeline. That's how long we have to pack up our lives. Emma looked up from her tablet. Mrs. Wellington sent an email. She's arranged for a moving company to handle everything. We just need to pack our personal items and essentials." The reality of their decision began to sink in as they walked through the house, marking what would go and what would stay. Each room held memories that couldn't be packed in boxes. "What about Mum's piano?" Sophie asked, running her fingers along the keys. The old upright had been silent since Sarah passed, but they'd kept it polished, a shrine to Sunday afternoons filled with music. "It goes with us," Jack said firmly. "Your mother would want you girls to learn to play." Tom Wilson arrived unannounced. That afternoon, as neighbors tend to do when big news breaks, he stood in the kitchen doorway, hat in hands. "Heard you're really doing it," he said, "taking that fancy job in Chicago." "News travels fast," Jack replied, offering him coffee. "Small town?" Tom accepted the cup. "Listen, Martha and I been talking. We'd like to lease the farm while you're gone. Keep it running, maintain things. Our boy Kevin's looking to start farming on his own anyway." Jack felt something tight in his chest loosen. Kevin Wilson had grown up alongside Emma, had Sarah's same gentle way with animals. "You'd do that?" "Neighbor helping neighbor," Tom said, echoing Jack's words to Alexandra. "Besides, way I figure it, you might want something to come back to someday." The next few days passed in a blur of preparations. Alexandra called daily, her practical assistance delivered with unexpected warmth. When Jack mentioned Sophie's worry about leaving their chickens, a detailed plan for a small, urban chicken coop appeared in their housing folder. Emma threw herself into researching their new schools, making lists of science programs and after-school activities. But at night, Jack would find her in the barn, sitting in the hayloft, where she and Sarah used to stargaze. "The stars will be harder to see in Chicago," she said, when he climbed up to join her. "Too many lights. Then we'll just have to find new constellations," he replied, "different kinds of stars." Sophie processed the change in her own way, drawing pictures of their farm to hang in their new home. "So we don't forget," she explained, carefully coloring the sunset over their fields. "We won't forget, sweetheart," Jack assured her. "This place is part of who we are." The morning of their departure arrived cool and clear. Their essential belongings were packed in suitcases by the door. The moving company would handle the rest. Next week, Martha Wilson appeared with breakfast casseroles and tears in her eyes. Other neighbors followed, bringing food and good wishes, their presence a reminder of all they were leaving behind. "The corporate apartment is temporary," Jack explained for the 100th time. "Once we're settled, we'll find our own place. Maybe something with a small garden for Sophie. And a workshop for Dad," Emma added. "Ms. Wellington promised." Finally, it was time. The Wellington Industries car waited in the driveway, their driver patient and professional. Jack locked the front door, then stood for a moment, taking in the view he'd seen every morning for the past 15 years. Sophie slipped her hand into his. "Dad? Are we being brave enough?" He squeezed her hand. "You know what? I think we are." Emma carried Lightning carefully to the car, the stuffed horse's worn fur a testament to all the tears and dreams it had already witnessed. As she settled into the leather seat, she pulled out her mother's letter, which Jack had given her to hold for the journey. "Mom would love this," she said softly. "Not just the Chicago part, the being brave part." The car's engine hummed to life. Through the window, Jack watched their neighbors wave, saw Tom Wilson raise his hand in a solemn salute. The farm grew, smaller in the rearview mirror, but somehow his heart felt larger, expanding to hold both what they were leaving and what lay ahead. Sarah's words echoed in his mind. "Life isn't stable. It's meant to be lived fully." As they turned onto the main road, heading toward the airport and their new life, Jack realized that for the first time in years, he was doing exactly that, living fully, bravely, with both feet moving forward and his heart wide open to possibility. The Chicago skyline rose before them, like something from another world. Sophie pressed her face against the plane window, her eyes wide as buildings pierced the clouds. Emma, trying to maintain her teenage composure, couldn't help but lean over for a better look. "They're so tall," Sophie whispered, "like mountains made of glass." Their Wellington Industries driver, Marcus, navigated through downtown traffic with practiced ease. Jack watched his daughter's reactions to each new sight. Sophie gasping at the height of the buildings, Emma trying to spot landmarks she'd researched. "Here we are," Marcus announced, pulling up to a sleek high-rise. "Wellington Plaza, your temporary home." A doorman in a crisp uniform approached their car. "Welcome to Wellington Plaza, Mr. Mitchell. Ms. Wellington asked me to give you these personally." He handed Jack 3 key cards with the Wellington logo. "Your apartment is on the 42nd floor, the penthouse level." Sophie clutched lightning. "Tighter. 42 floors up? Don't worry, miss." The doorman smiled. "The view is worth it." The elevator ride was silent, all 3 Mitchells holding their breath as they ascended. When the doors opened directly into their apartment, the gasp was unanimous. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the entire city. The space was easily 4 times the size of their farmhouse, decorated in warm earth tones that somehow made the modern design feel welcoming. Fresh flowers sat on every surface, and a handwritten note from Alexandra rested on the kitchen island. "Welcome to Chicago. I hope you'll find everything to your liking. I've taken the liberty of arranging a few things to help you feel at home." Jack picked up the note, noticing the kitchen behind it was fully stocked. A tablet on the counter displayed their schedule for the week: school tours, orientation meetings, shopping appointments for appropriate work and school attire. "Dad," Emma called from down a hallway, "come look at this." He found her in what was clearly meant to be her room. One wall was entirely covered in scientific equipment: a professional microscope, a small lab setup, and a top-of-the-line computer with engineering software already installed. "There's a note," she said, holding up a card. "For the future engineer. Your questions about the tractor repair impressed me. A.W." "Dad!" Sophie's voice echoed from another room. "I have a garden! Inside!" Her room featured a climate-controlled greenhouse space near the window, complete with seedlings and child-sized gardening tools. A small plaque read, "Every flower needs room to grow." Jack found his own surprise in the study. A professional workbench held a complete set of precision tools, and the walls were lined with technical manuals for every piece of equipment Wellington Industries produced. "Is this really all ours?" Sophie asked, appearing at his elbow. Before he could answer, the elevator chimed. Alexandra stepped out, looking perfectly at home in the penthouse setting. "Only temporarily," she said, answering Sophie's question, "until you find a place that feels more like home. Though I hope you'll stay in the building. Your father's insights will be valuable at headquarters across the street." Jack turned to thank her, but the words caught in his throat. Alexandra was watching his daughters explore with an expression he recognized, the same look Sarah had when their girls discovered something new. "The schools are expecting you tomorrow for tours," Alexandra continued, "but today I thought you might appreciate a guide to the city." She pulled out 3 passes. "Starting with the Museum of Science and Industry. I hear they have an excellent agricultural technology exhibit." Emma's eyes lit up. "Can we, Dad?" "I've arranged a private tour," Alexandra added. "No crowds, no rush. And Sophie, they have a genetics exhibit about butterfly gardens I think you'll enjoy." Jack studied Alexandra, seeing past the polished exterior to something genuine in her offer. "You don't have to do all this." "I know," she smiled, and for a moment he saw the woman who'd stood beside her broken tractor, asking questions about engine repairs. "But I want to. Besides, I rarely get to visit the museum myself. Too busy. This gives me an excuse." Sophie had already retrieved her shoes, practically bouncing with excitement. Emma was gathering her tablet to take notes. The city stretched out beyond their windows, no longer just an alien landscape, but a place beginning to feel possible. "Well," Jack said, "I suppose we should start exploring our new home." "Home," Alexandra repeated softly. "Yes, I hope it will be." Something in her tone made Jack look at her sharply, but she had already turned to help Sophie with her coat. As they rode the elevator down, Jack realized the tight knot of anxiety in his chest had loosened. The farm would always be home, but maybe Sarah had been right. Maybe home wasn't just a place, but a feeling. And right now, watching his daughters. Excitement and Alexandra's gentle guidance, that feeling was growing stronger with each passing moment. Jack stared at his reflection in the elevator's polished doors, barely recognizing himself in the tailored suit Alexandra's personal shopper had selected. His calloused hands felt strange without their usual layer of engine grease, and his new leather briefcase seemed to mock his weathered toolbox back home. "Good morning, Mr. Mitchell," the security guard greeted him as he entered Wellington Industries headquarters. "Ms. Wellington asked me to show you to the Innovation Lab." The lab occupied an entire floor filled with prototype equipment and testing stations. Engineers in white coats huddled around workbenches, their quiet discussions a sharp contrast to the solitary work Jack was used to. "Mitchell," a booming voice caught his attention. Dr. James Chen, head of engineering, approached with an outstretched hand. "Alexandra said you were the real deal. Let's see what you've got." Dr. Chen led him to a partially disassembled tractor engine. "This prototype's giving us trouble. Want to take a look?" Jack rolled up his sleeves, muscle memory taking over as he examined the engine. "Your cooling system's overcomplicated," he said, pointing to a maze of tubes. "Out in the field, this would be a nightmare to repair." "That's exactly what we need." Dr. Chen grinned. Real-world perspective. Half these engineers have never set foot on a farm. Meanwhile, across town, Emma sat in her advanced science class, heart racing as her new teacher discussed their upcoming project. "Today, we'll begin designing solar-powered irrigation systems," Mrs. Rodriguez announced. "Emma, I understand you have some practical experience with farm irrigation." Emma straightened in her chair, thinking of long days helping her father repair their old system. "Yes, Ma'am. We used gravity-fed lines with manual controls." "Perfect. You can help the team understand real-world applications." At lunch, Emma found herself surrounded by curious classmates. "Is it true you lived on a real farm? Did you have horses? What's it like having Alexandra Wellington basically adopt your family?" That last question made her pause. The local news had run stories about their arrival, painting Alexandra as a fairy godmother figure and their family as a rural Cinderella story. The reality felt more complicated. In her own school, Sophie was making her own adjustments. Her teacher had been amazed by her knowledge of plants, earned through years of helping with their vegetable garden. During recess, she taught her new friends about collecting eggs and the personalities of different chicken breeds. "My dad says we might be able to have chickens here too," she told them proudly. "Miss Alexandra is helping us plan a coop for our new house." Back at Wellington Industries, Jack was deep in discussion with the engineering team when Alexandra appeared. "How's it going?" she asked, joining them at the workbench. "Your new hires already solved 2 design issues," Dr. Chen reported, "and he's suggesting modifications that could reduce manufacturing costs by 20%. Jack wiped his hands on a shop rag, suddenly self-conscious. "Just applying practical experience. These machines need to be serviceable by regular farmers, not just engineers." "That's exactly why you're here." Alexandra's eyes sparkled with approval. "Join me for lunch? I'd love to hear more about your ideas." The corporate cafeteria was a far cry from his kitchen table, but Alexandra led him to a quiet corner where they could talk freely. "The girls are settling in well," she said, surprising him with her knowledge. "Emma's science teacher called this morning, very impressed. And Sophie's starting a garden club. You're keeping tabs on them." "I feel responsible for uprooting your family," she admitted. "I want to make sure it was worth it." Something in her voice made Jack look closer. Behind her professional facade, he caught a glimpse of uncertainty. "My wife, Sarah," he said slowly, "used to say that nothing worth doing comes without risk. The girls are thriving here, and this work, it matters. Making these machines better for people like me, people just trying to keep their farms running." "It matters to me, too," Alexandra said softly. "More than quarterly reports or stock prices, this company was built to help farmers, not just profit from them. My father understood that, but somewhere along the way, we lost sight of it. Until You decided to fix a tractor yourself, she laughed, the sound drawing curious glances from nearby tables. Until I met someone who reminded me what it's all really about. Their eyes met, and for a moment the cafeteria faded away. Then Alexandra's phone buzzed, breaking the spell. Board meeting, she sighed. Will you and the girls join me for dinner tonight? I want to hear all about your first day. Jack watched her leave, her heels clicking purposefully across the floor. The suit didn't feel quite so strange anymore, and the briefcase had already collected its first smudge of engine. Grease. Maybe, he thought, they were all learning to bridge their different worlds. Jack found the letter by accident. He was reviewing old project files in Alexandra's office while she was in a board meeting, looking for previous attempts at rural equipment initiatives. A worn envelope slipped from between the pages, the handwriting faded but elegant. Dearest Alex, it began. He knew he should stop reading, but something in the tone caught him, a familiar echo of loss. By the time you read this, I'll be gone. The doctors say 3 months, but we both know it might be less. I'm not afraid of dying, but I am afraid of what it will do to you. You'll throw yourself into the company, hide behind board meetings and quarterly reports. You'll tell yourself it's what I wanted, my legacy living on through you. But baby girl, the company was never meant to be your whole life. That was my father's last letter. Jack started at Alexandra's voice. She stood in the doorway, looking smaller somehow without her usual commanding presence. I'm sorry, he said quickly. I shouldn't have. It's okay. She crossed to her desk, taking the letter gently. I keep it with the rural initiative files because that was his passion. He grew up on a farm in Minnesota, worked his way through college fixing tractors, even after building Wellington Industries. He never lost touch with those roots. Until the cancer, Jack said softly. Alexandra nodded, sinking into her chair. 3 months from diagnosis to the end. I was 28. Barely out of business school. The board wasn't sure I could handle the CEO position, but it was my father's dying wish. You proved them wrong, did I? She traced the letter's edges. I made the company more profitable, more efficient, but somewhere along the way, I lost sight of what my father built it for, to help farmers, to make their lives better. A knock interrupted them. Alexandra's assistant entered with an urgent expression. Miss Wellington, the journal reporter is here for your interview, and the board members want to discuss the rumors. Rumors? Jack asked as the assistant retreated. Alexandra's professional mask slipped back into place, but not before Jack caught a flash of worry. Nothing important. We should get back to the rural initiative plans. But the rumors found them anyway. That evening, Emma burst into their apartment waving her tablet. Dad, have you seen this? She pulled up a financial news site where headlines screamed about Alexandra Wellington's romantic entanglement with a rural consultant, threatening her position at Wellington Industries. Stock prices dropped 3 points after Wellington Industries CEO Alexandra Wellington was spotted having an intimate dinner with recently hired consultant Jack Mitchell. Emma read. Board members expressed concern over her judgment. Jack felt his stomach twist. The intimate dinner had been a working meal with the engineering team, but the photo made it look private, conspiratorial. His phone buzzed. Dr. Chen calling. Jack, you might want to stay home tomorrow. Press is swarming the building, and some board members are questioning the whole rural initiative. Sophie found him staring out the window later that night. Dad, are we going to have to leave Chicago? No, sweetheart, this will blow over. Good, she hugged him fiercely, because I like it here. And I think Ms. Alexandra likes having us here too. She looks happier when you're around. Jack stroked her hair, thinking of Sarah's letter about being brave. But this kind of bravery, facing public scrutiny, threatening Alexandra's position, felt different. His phone lit up with a text from Alexandra. I'm sorry about the press. Don't worry about the board. This company needs you more than they know. He started to reply, but another text followed. I need you more than I realized. Jack stared at the words, feeling the weight of them. Outside their window, Chicago sparkled. like a sky full of earthbound stars. Somewhere in that glittering landscape, Alexandra sat in her own penthouse, maybe looking out at the same lights. The elevator chimed softly. Jack turned, expecting Emma or Sophie, but Alexandra stood there, still in her business suit, but somehow vulnerable. "I found something else of my father's," she said without preamble. "A note about you. About me, but how? Not you specifically. About someone like you." He wrote, "Someday, when I'm gone, find someone who remembers why we started this company, someone who sees the heart of it, not just the profit. And when you find them, don't let the board or the press or your own fears push them away." She held out a small, worn notebook. "I think he knew what I'd need even then, just like your Sarah knew what you'd need." Jack took the notebook, understanding the trust she was placing in him. Outside, a siren wailed, and somewhere in the building, Sophie laughed at something. Emma had said. Their worlds, once so separate, had become hopelessly intertwined. "Alexandra," he started, but she shook her head. "Just don't let me push you away either, no matter what happens tomorrow." Wellington Industries scandal, rural romance, or corporate conspiracy. The headline blazed across every news channel as Jack tried to shepherd his daughters through the crowd of reporters outside their building. Camera flashes burst like lightning, microphones thrust toward them like accusing fingers. "Mr. Mitchell, is it true you were hired without proper vetting? Did you know Ms. Wellington before the tractor incident? Girls, how does it feel to be part of Chicago's biggest corporate scandal?" Emma pulled Sophie closer, shielding her sister's face from the cameras. A security team from Wellington Industries pushed through, creating a path to their waiting car. "Don't respond," their driver Marcus advised, pulling away from the curb. "Ms. Wellington's PR team is handling everything." "But they're lying," Sophie burst out. "Ms. Alexandra didn't do anything wrong, neither did Dad." Jack's phone buzzed with messages from back home. Tom Wilson had sent a photo of their local paper, Small-Town Farmer Rocks Wellington Empire. Even their peaceful corner of Nebraska hadn't escaped the story. At Wellington Industries, the mood was ice-cold. Executive faces turned away as Jack passed, conversations dying at his approach. Only Dr. Chen greeted him normally. "Board's in emergency session," he muttered. "Alexandra's fighting for the rural initiative, and for you." "James," Jack grabbed his arm. "I should resign. This is destroying everything she's built." That's exactly what the old guard wants. They never liked Alexandra's vision for the company. Too much heart, not enough profit. Dr. Chen's eyes narrowed. They're using this to try to force her out. Jack's phone lit up with a text from Emma. "Dad, come home now. It's bad." He found his daughters huddled around Emma's tablet, watching a live business news broadcast. A distinguished-looking man in an expensive suit was speaking, his tone grave. Sources inside Wellington Industries reveal that Alexandra Wellington's judgment has been compromised. This rural initiative is merely a cover for her inappropriate relationship with an unqualified consultant. "The board has evidence." "Turn it off," Jack said quietly. "But Dad, please." Emma closed the video, but her hands were shaking. "They're trying to hurt her, aren't they? Because of us." Before Jack could answer, the elevator chimed. Alexandra stepped out, her face pale but composed. "I'm sorry," she said immediately. "I never meant for your family to face this kind of scrutiny." "We're tougher than we look," Jack replied, but Sophie's tear-stained face betrayed them. Alexandra knelt beside Sophie's chair. "Hey there, butterfly girl. Remember what you told me about your garden? How sometimes you have to prune things back to help them grow stronger?" Sophie nodded, sniffling. "Well, sometimes life is like that too. Things get messy and difficult, but that's how we grow." "Did your dad tell you that?" Sophie asked. "In his letters?" Alexandra blinked, surprised. "No, but he would have loved that wisdom. You remind me of him sometimes." Her phone buzzed, and Jack saw her flinch slightly at the message. "The board?" he asked. "They're demanding I end the rural initiative, remove you from the company." She straightened up, squaring her shoulders. "They've called for a vote of no confidence. Then we'll leave, Jack said firmly. Go back to Nebraska. This isn't worth— No, Alexandra's voice was steel. My father built this company to help people like you, to bridge the gap between corporate efficiency and rural reality. I won't let them destroy that vision, but your position is just a title. She smiled, a real smile that transformed her face. You taught me that, you know, that day with the tractor. I was just another person with a broken machine, and you helped me anyway. No titles, no expectations, just real. Emma stood suddenly. We can help. I've been collecting data on Dad's improvements to the prototype engines, the cost savings, the efficiency gains, and Sophie's garden project. It's already being copied by 3 other schools as a pilot program for urban farming education. The press doesn't care about that, Jack said gently. No, Alexandra agreed, but the shareholders will, especially when they learn about the military contract that's interested in your simplified repair protocols. Military contract came in this morning. They want equipment that can be maintained in the field with minimal specialized training. Sound familiar? For the first time that day, hope flickered in Jack's chest. What do you need from us? Just the truth. Your story, your expertise, your real impact on this company. She looked at each of them in turn. And maybe some of that farm-grown courage you Mitchells seem to have in abundance. Sophie reached for Alexandra's hand. We're good at being brave. Dad says we take turns. Then it's my turn, Alexandra said, squeezing Sophie's fingers. Board meetings in an hour. Care to help me save my father's company? Outside their windows, the city lights began to twinkle on. A galaxy of possibilities still shining despite the storm clouds gathering. Jack looked at his daughters, at Alexandra, at this new life they'd all built together. Some things were worth fighting for, even if the odds seemed stacked against them. Well, he said, I do have some experience fixing broken things. The resignation letter felt heavy in Jack's hands as he sat in his office at Wellington Industries. He'd written it at dawn, after a sleepless night spent watching the city lights and remembering Sarah's words about being brave. Sometimes he realized being brave meant walking away. The board meeting had gone worse than anyone expected. Despite Alexandra's passionate defense and the promising military contract, the old guard had turned it into a character assassination. They dredged up every repair job Jack had ever done, painting him as a simple mechanic who'd charmed his way into both the company and their CEO's affections. This isn't personal, board member Harrison had said, his smile sharp as a blade. It's about protecting Wellington Industries' reputation. Surely you understand. But it was personal. Jack had seen it in Alexandra's eyes when they questioned her judgment, in the way her hands trembled slightly as she presented the Rural Initiative's success metrics. They weren't just attacking a program, they were dismantling her father's legacy piece by piece. A knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. Dr. Chen entered, his usual cheerful demeanor replaced by grim determination. Don't do it, Jack. Don't give them what they want. They're going to force her out, James, unless I leave first. And you think that will save her? Dr. Chen dropped a file on his desk. Look at these numbers. Your modifications to the irrigation systems alone could save family farms millions in maintenance costs. The military contract is just the beginning. Numbers don't matter if they won't listen. Then make them listen. Dr. Chen's voice rose uncharacteristically. Alexandra's not the only one with a legacy to protect. What about your girls? What message does running away send them? As if summoned by his words, Emma appeared in the doorway, still wearing her school uniform. Dad, why are there boxes in your office? Jack tried to hide the resignation letter, but Emma's sharp eyes had already spotted it. Her face went pale, then flushed with anger. You're quitting, just like that? Emma, it's complicated. No, it's not. She stormed into the office, Sophie trailing behind her. You're letting them win. After everything Miss Alexandra's done for us, everything we've built here, they're trying to destroy her company, Jack explained gently. If you stay, we fight, Sophie interrupted, her small voice firm. That's what you always taught us. When the drought came, when Mom got sick, when things got hard, we never ran away. Jack looked at his daughters, Emma's fierce determination, Sophie's unwavering faith, and saw Sarah in both of them. What would she say about this moment? His phone buzzed. Alexandra calling. Before he could answer, his office door burst open. Again, Alexandra stood there, slightly breathless, her usual corporate polish disheveled. "Don't you dare," she said, spotting the resignation letter. "Don't you dare try to protect me by leaving." "Alexandra, no, listen to me." She crossed the room in quick strides. "My father's last board meeting, he faced a similar coup. They said he was too focused on farmers, not enough on profits. Know what he did? He brought in a family from Minnesota, showed the board exactly whose lives their decisions affected." She grabbed the resignation letter, tearing it in half. "We're doing this my way, all of us, together. The shareholders meet tomorrow," Dr. Chen added. "We can request an open forum." "They'll try to block it," Jack warned. "Let them try." Alexandra's eyes blazed. "I'm still CEO and I'm done playing by their rules. Emma, those efficiency reports you've been working on, bring them. Sophie, we need your school garden presentation. Dr. Chen, get every farmer who's tested Jack's modifications on video call." "What are you planning?" Jack asked, although he was already beginning to smile. "Remember what you told me about fixing that tractor? Sometimes you need to strip everything down to see what's really broken." She reached for his hand. "The board thinks this is about us, about some rural romance scandal. Let's show them what it's really about, the people their decisions affect, the lives we can change. And if it doesn't work," Jack had to ask, "then we'll fail trying to do the right thing, not succeed at being cowards." She squeezed his hand. "Your choice, Jack Mitchell. Run away to protect me or stay and fight beside me." Sophie slipped her small hand into his free one. "We take turns being brave, remember?" Emma joined them, completing their circle. "Looks like it's all our turns now." Jack looked at their joined hands, calloused, smooth, small, strong, and knew there was only one choice he could live with. "Okay," he said, "let's show them what rural ingenuity really looks like." The familiar crunch of gravel under their wheels felt like a homecoming as Jack's truck, retrieved from storage for this mission, pulled up to their farmhouse. In the pre-dawn light, the fields stretched out like a patchwork quilt, the early corn already knee-high. "It looks exactly the same," Sophie whispered, clutching lightning to her chest. But it wasn't the same. Tom Wilson's boy Kevin had kept his word. The farm was well-maintained, maybe even better organized than when they'd left. Solar panels glinted on the barn roof, a Wellington Industries prototype Jack had helped design. "Mr. Wilson!" Sophie called out, spotting their neighbor emerging from the barn. "We came back." "Just for a few days," Jack clarified as Tom approached. "We need your help." Inside the farmhouse, over Martha Wilson's fresh coffee and still warm muffins, Jack explained the situation. Tom listened silently, his weathered face thoughtful. "So this Alexandria of yours," he said finally, "she's fighting to keep her daddy's company focused on helping folks like us? And they're trying to stop her," Emma added. "Just because she believes in Dad's ideas." Tom shared a look with Martha. "Reckon you remember the drought of 15, Jack, when the bank was ready to foreclose on half the farms in the county?" Jack nodded. That had been a brutal year. Wellington Industries extended everyone's equipment loans. No interest, no questions asked, kept a lot of families on their land. Tom sipped his coffee. That was her father's decision, wasn't it? "Alexandra told me it was the right thing to do," Jack said, "even though it hurt their stock price." "Well then," Martha set down a fresh plate of muffins with purpose, "what do you need from us?" Over the next 2 days, their farmhouse became command central for what Emma called Operation Rural Truth. Farmers drove in from 3 counties, sharing stories of how Jack's modifications had saved them time and money. Kevin Wilson demonstrated the new solar irrigation system for Alexandra's video team, who'd flown in from Chicago. "See how simple the controls are?" he explained. My 8-year-old daughter can adjust it from her tablet. Before, you needed an engineering degree just to change the water pressure. In the barn, Jack and Tom recorded testimonials about the military contract prototype. If a farmer can fix it with basic tools, a soldier can fix it in the field. Jack demonstrated, breaking down and reassembling the engine with practiced ease. Alexandra arrived on the second day, trading her usual suits for jeans and boots. Jack found her in the kitchen with Martha, learning to make his favorite apple pie. Your mother-in-law's recipe? She asked when she saw him. Sarah's, Martha answered for him. She always said the secret was patience. Good things can't be rushed. Alexandra's hands were dusted with flour, a smudge of cinnamon on her cheek. She looked more relaxed than he'd seen her since the crisis began. Your community is amazing, she said later, as they walked the fields in the evening light. They didn't hesitate to help, didn't ask for anything in return. That's what neighbors do, Jack smiled, echoing his words from their first meeting. The board doesn't understand this world. She stopped, watching the sunset paint the corn golden. They see spreadsheets and profit margins. They don't see Kevin teaching his daughter about irrigation, or Martha passing down family recipes, or Tom remembering a kindness from years ago. So show them, Jack said simply. Not just the numbers, but the people, the lives their decisions touch. Sophie's voice carried across the field. She was showing her school friends the prototype chicken coop Alexandra had designed for their Chicago apartment. Emma sat on the porch with Kevin's daughter, explaining the tablet controls for the irrigation system. Look at them, Alexandra said softly. They're bridging our worlds without even trying, making something new out of both. The evening light caught her hair, reminding Jack of another sunset, another woman who'd believed in the power of doing the right thing. Sarah would have liked Alexandra, he realized, would have recognized the same determination to make the world better, one small kindness at a time. We should head back, he said reluctantly. Big day tomorrow. Alexandra nodded, but lingered a moment longer. Thank you, Jack, for bringing me here, for showing me what I'm really fighting for. Thank you for giving us something worth fighting for. They walked back to the house together, their shadows merging in the fading light. Tomorrow they'd return to Chicago to face the shareholders with their evidence and their stories. But tonight, surrounded by the strength of community and the peace of familiar fields, victory felt possible. Sometimes you had to come home to remember why you left in the first place, and what you were brave enough to build somewhere new. The next hour passed in a blur. Alexandra's press conference shocked the financial world. Markets reacted, phones rang incessantly, and through it all she stood calm in the storm she'd created. This isn't just about changing ownership, she told the reporters. It's about changing perspective. For too long, we've treated farmers as customers when they should have been partners. Emma and Sophie watched the live coverage from their apartment, sending excited texts to Jack. Dad! Ms. Alexandra just quoted your thing about fixing tractors. She mentioned my garden project and Kevin's daughter with the irrigation tablet. Back in the boardroom, Harrison made one last attempt. Think about your future, Alexandra. No other. And company will hire a CEO who gave away control to farmers. Alexandra's laugh was genuine. You still don't understand. I don't want to run another corporation. I want to build something real. She turned to Jack, something that matters. As the day wound down, Jack found her in her office, packing her father's old photos. You didn't have to do this, he said. Yes, I did. She held up a picture of her father standing proudly beside their first tractor prototype. When you fixed my tractor that day, you didn't just repair a machine. You reminded me who I was supposed to be. And who is that? Someone who believes that doing the right thing is more important than doing the profitable thing. She smiled. Sound like anyone you know? Jack thought of Sarah, of all the times she'd chosen kindness over convenience. Yeah, it does. Alexandra's phone buzzed, initial responses from farming communities about the share purchase program. The numbers were encouraging. "They're calling it the Wellington Revolution on social media," she laughed. "Apparently, I've either saved American farming or destroyed modern capitalism, depending on who you ask. What will you do now?" She looked out at the Chicago skyline, the same view that had once symbolized her power. Now it looked more like a horizon full of possibilities. "I thought I might need a good mechanic," she said softly, "someone who knows how to fix broken things, not just machines but systems, dreams, hearts." Their eyes met, and in that moment, all the walls between their worlds finally crumbled. "I know a guy," Jack said, "but he comes with 2 amazing daughters and a whole lot of rural wisdom." "Sounds perfect." Alexandra reached for his hand. "Think they're ready for another adventure?" Outside her office, the press still clamored. The board still argued, and the financial world was still reeling. But in that quiet space, 2 people from different worlds had finally found their common ground. And somewhere, Jack was sure, Sarah was smiling. The handwritten note appeared on Jack's desk the morning after Alexandra's resignation. Between the media frenzy and board chaos, he hadn't expected to hear from her so soon. "Meet me where it all began, A." An hour later, he pulled up to the same stretch of road where he'd first fixed her tractor. Alexandra sat on the tailgate of a surprisingly weathered pickup truck, wearing jeans and a Wellington Industries work shirt. "Nice truck," he said, recognizing it as one of their older models. "My father's. Been in storage since he died." She patted the faded paint. "Thought it was time to take it out again." Feeling nostalgic, feeling honest. She met his eyes. "I've been the CEO's daughter or the company president for so long, I almost forgot who I really was. That day, you fixed my tractor. It was the first time in years someone saw just me." Jack leaned against the truck beside her. "And who is just you? A farmer's daughter who loves the smell of engine grease and fresh-turned earth. Someone who remembers falling asleep to the sound of her father explaining crop rotation and equipment. Mechanics." She smiled. "Someone who's terrified and excited about what comes next. Seems like someone I'd like to know better. Even with all the chaos I've caused, the media's still camping outside your building. I've weathered worse storms." He thought of Sarah, of those final hospital days. "Life has a way of teaching you what matters." Alexandra pulled an envelope from her back pocket. "I found this in my father's desk. It's a deed to 300 acres just east of your farm. He bought it the year he died, said he wanted to get back to his roots someday." She handed him the deed. "I was thinking, what if we combined our knowledge, your practical experience, my business connections, create a real training center for farmers, a place to test new ideas and teach the next generation, like a farming university, more like a community, a place where innovation meets tradition." Her eyes lit up with the vision. "We could use your modifications as the foundation, work with the military to develop their contract. Emma could run the technology program. You should see the proposals she's been sending me." Jack laughed. "She does take after her mother. Sarah never could resist a good project." "Sophie's already designed the educational gardens." Alexandra grinned, "complete with a deluxe chicken coop and butterfly sanctuary." A comfortable silence fell between them, filled with possibility. "You know," Jack said finally, "Sarah left me a letter. Told me not to be afraid of change, of new beginnings." Smart woman. She also said that home isn't just a place, it's the love we carry, the memories we make, the chances we take together. He turned to face Alexandra. "Sound like anything you'd be interested in?" "Jack Mitchell, are you suggesting we build something together? A life? A future? A revolutionary farming education center?" He smiled. "Yes to all of it." Alexandra slid her hand into his, the gesture as natural as breathing. "Your daughters might have something to say about this." As if on cue, Jack's phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "Dad, where are you? Sophie's designed wedding flowers for the garden, and I've calculated the optimal solar panel placement for the new training center." They both laughed, the sound carrying across the fields that had brought them together. "Looks like they're a step ahead of us," Alexandra said. "They usually are." Jack squeezed her hand. "So, Ms. Wellington, ready to revolutionize farming, scandalize the corporate world, and maybe find out where this thing between us leads?" "That's not my name anymore," she reminded him. "Just Alexandra now. Or Alex, like my dad used to call me." "Alex," he tested the name. "I like it. Suits you better than CEO anyway." She leaned against him, fitting perfectly against his side. "You know what I think? I think our parents knew what they were doing. Your Sarah, telling you to be brave. My father, buying this land. They knew we'd need somewhere to grow into who we were meant to be. Together," Jack added. "Together," she agreed. "With two brilliant daughters, a revolutionary vision, and just enough stubbornness to make it work." The morning sun caught her smile, reminding Jack of that first day with the broken tractor. Sometimes, he realized, love doesn't arrive with dramatic gestures or grand declarations. Sometimes it comes with grease-stained hands and honest hearts, with shared dreams and the courage to chase them. "Well then," he said, helping her down from the tailgate, "let's go build something amazing." The blueprint spread across their kitchen table was covered in sticky notes, each in a different handwriting. Emma's precise technical notes in blue, Sophie's garden plans in green, Alexandra's elegant annotations in purple, and Jack's practical adjustments in his characteristic red scrawl. "If we angle the solar array like this," Emma pointed, "we can power both the training center and the experimental greenhouse. And my butterfly garden can go here," Sophie added, placing another green note, "right between the classrooms and the testing fields." They were gathered in the farmhouse kitchen, now a perfect blend of rural charm and modern efficiency. Alexandra had insisted on keeping the old wooden table where so many family meals had been shared, but the rest of the kitchen gleamed with carefully chosen updates. "The first group of farmer shareholders arrives next week," Alexandra said, checking her tablet. 20 families, all eager to learn the new systems and become trainers themselves. Jack smiled at her unconscious shift into business mode. Some habits died hard, but he loved how she could switch from corporate strategist to helping Sophie collect eggs in the same breath. "Tom Wilson's agreed to help with the hands-on training," he added. "Says it's about time someone taught things the right way." A knock at the screen door interrupted them. Dr. Chen stood there holding a stack of files. "Hope I'm not interrupting family time," he grinned. "But wait until you see these new test results." He'd resigned from Wellington Industries to join their venture, bringing decades of engineering expertise and a passion for practical innovation. The military contract had followed him, expanded now to include training programs. The simplified repair protocols are showing a 98% success rate in field conditions, he reported, spreading out charts. "The Joint Chiefs are impressed." Alexandra leaned in, her shoulder brushing Jack's comfortably. "What about the cost analysis?" "That's the best part." Emma pulled up data on her tablet. "By incorporating Dad's modifications and local maintenance training, we're reducing operational costs by 60%. And helping local communities," Sophie added firmly. She'd become their unofficial ambassador of social impact, insisting they track not just financial metrics but human ones too. Jack watched his family, both old and new, work together seamlessly. Dr. Chen had become like an uncle to the girls, his scientific enthusiasm matching Emma's perfectly. Alexandra moved through their lives as if she'd always been there, filling. Spaces they hadn't known were empty. "Oh!" Alexandra straightened suddenly. "I almost forgot. I have something to show you all." She retrieved a large package from her car, handling it carefully. Inside was a weathered sign, the paint faded but the letters still clear. "Wellington Family Farms, where innovation meets tradition." "Dad had it made the year he bought this land," she explained softly. "I found it in storage with his truck." "It's perfect," Jack said, understanding the weight of the moment. "I thought we could hang it at the entrance. Add Mitchell before Wellington, though." She looked at him uncertainly. "If that's okay." "More than okay." He pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Does this mean we're officially going to be Mitchells too?" Sophie asked eagerly. Alexandra's eyes met Jack's, full of love and promise. "I hope so, butterfly girl." Emma, ever practical, was already sketching the modified sign design. "We'll need to adjust the spacing, maybe update the font. And add butterflies," Sophie insisted. "And solar panels," Emma added. "And your mother's flowers," Jack said quietly to his daughters. "Sarah's favourites along the bottom." Alexandra squeezed his hand, understanding perfectly. Their new life wasn't about erasing the past, but building on it, honouring all the love that had brought them to this moment. Outside, the sun was setting over their expanded fields. The old farm and Alexandra's father's land had been merged, seamlessly, just like their lives. Construction equipment stood ready to break ground on the training center, and the prototype greenhouse already gleamed with promise. Dr. Chen gathered his files, heading out to his small house on the property. Emma followed, eager to review more test data, while Sophie skipped off to check on her chickens one last time before dark. In the quiet kitchen, Jack and Alexandra stood looking at their blueprint for the future, both the paper one on the table and the larger one they were building together. "Who would have thought," she mused, "that a broken tractor could lead to all this?" "I'm starting to think it wasn't actually broken," Jack teased, "just waiting for the right moment. Like us?" She turned in his arms, smiling up at him. "Like us." He kissed her softly. "Now, about that sign." The morning of the wedding dawned clear and bright, the kind of perfect September day that made the fields glow golden. The training center's newly completed courtyard had been transformed overnight, with white chairs set in neat rows and Sophie's carefully tended flowers creating a natural aisle. Emma stood at her father's bedroom door, already dressed in her maid-of-honor gown. "Dad, you ready?" Jack adjusted his tie one last time, seeing Sarah's smile in his daughter's reflection. "How do I look?" "Like you're exactly where you're supposed to be." Emma handed him a small package. This came from Miss Alexandra, well, soon-to-be Mom Alexandra. Inside, Jack found a familiar silver money clip, the one Alexandra had dropped the day they met. Attached was a note. Something old, something new. "The clip is from my past, but what it represents is our future. See you at the altar, Alex." Downstairs, the house buzzed with activity. Sophie darted between guests in her flower girl dress, proudly showing off her butterfly garden, visible through the windows. Tom and Martha Wilson were directing parking in the newly expanded lot, while Dr. Chen supervised the setup of a surprise technical demonstration Alexandra had planned for the reception. The first class of farmer shareholders had graduated last week, and many had stayed for the wedding. They mingled easily with former Wellington Industries executives who joined Alexandra's new venture, the two worlds finding common ground in their shared vision for the future. 10 minutes, Martha called up the stairs. Jack stepped out onto the porch, taking in the scene. The old farmhouse stood proud behind the wedding setup, its fresh paint and subtle updates reflecting their blended approach to life. Beyond it, the training center's modern lines somehow complemented the traditional barn, just as the experimental greenhouse worked in harmony with Sophie's cottage gardens. A sleek car pulled up, and Alexandra's father's old pickup truck was parked beside it, a perfect symbol of their united worlds. Kevin Wilson's daughter ran past with a tablet controlling the solar-powered lighting system Emma had designed for the reception. "Dad?" Sophie appeared at his elbow. "Ms. Alexandra asked me to give you something else." She held out Sarah's old recipe box. Inside, Jack found a new note tucked among the familiar recipe cards. "I found this in the kitchen, and thought you might want it today. Your Sarah knew all about love and family and building something that lasts. I promise to help honor her recipes and her memory in our new life together. All my love, Alex." Music began to play, not the traditional wedding march, but a gentle, country song that had often played in their kitchen during family dinners. Emma appeared, ready to escort her father to his place. "Look," she whispered, pointing to the gathered crowd. The seats held their entire story. Farmers and executives, neighbors and business partners, old friends and new family. Even Harrison from the board was there, having finally understood the vision Alexandra had fought for. But Jack's eyes were drawn to the back, where Alexandra waited with Sophie. His soon-to-be wife wore a simple white dress that would have looked equally at home in a boardroom or a barn. Her dark hair was crowned with flowers from their garden, and her smile outshone everything else. Sophie gave a signal, and suddenly butterflies rose from the gardens, released from their sanctuary to dance around the ceremony space. The crowd gasped in delight, and Alexandra laughed. That same genuine laugh Jack had fallen in love with beside a broken tractor. "Ready?" Emma squeezed his arm. Jack touched Sarah's recipe box once more, then squared his shoulders. "Ready." As they took their places and the ceremony began, Jack looked out over their gathered loved ones. The late afternoon sun caught Alexandra's father's old sign, now proudly displaying Mitchell Wellington Family Farms at the property entrance. Below it, Sarah's favorite flowers bloomed alongside new varieties Sophie had planted. Alexandra reached him at the altar, her eyes bright with happy tears. "Hi, neighbor," she whispered. "Hi yourself," he smiled, taking her hands. Around them, their worlds had merged into something beautiful and new, a place where tradition and innovation danced together like Sophie's butterflies, where love grew as naturally as crops in fertile soil, and where two people who started as strangers could build a future neither had imagined but both had always dreamed of. 1 year later, the restored tractor sat in a place of honor at the Mitchell Wellington Family Farm's first anniversary celebration. Freshly painted and polished, it served as both monument and metaphor, a simple machine that had brought two worlds together. "And this," Alexandra told the gathered crowd of new students, "is where our story began. One broken tractor, one act of kindness, and a reminder that sometimes the best innovations come from understanding what really matters." The training center had exceeded everyone's expectations. Over 200 farmers had completed their programs, each returning home with new skills and ownership shares in their growing enterprise. The military contract had expanded to include 3 new equipment lines, all based on Jack's practical design philosophy. Emma, now 14, had just won the state science fair with her solar irrigation system. She stood beside Alexandra at the podium, confidently explaining the technology to visiting agricultural officials. In the butterfly garden, Sophie led tours for children from local schools, teaching them about ecosystems and the importance of protecting traditional farming methods alongside modern innovations. "You know what your mother would say about all this?" Jack looked up to find Martha Wilson beside him, watching the celebrations. "That we're exactly where we're supposed to be," he smiled. "Sarah always did know best." Martha patted his arm. "Just like Alexandra's father knew what he was doing when he bought this land." Across the courtyard, Alexandra caught his eye and smiled. That same warm, genuine smile that had first suggested there was more to the elegant CEO than met the eye. She wore work boots with her business attire now, equally comfortable in board, meetings or barn inspections. Their home had become a perfect blend of both their worlds. The farmhouse kitchen still hosted family dinners, but now they were likely to include discussions of international agricultural policy alongside Sophie's reports on her latest gardening experiments. The old recipe box held Sarah's cards alongside new ones in Alexandra's handwriting, traditions merging, growing, creating something new. Dr. Chen appeared, excitement evident in his voice. "Jack, the new prototype's ready for testing. We incorporated that modification you suggested after dinner, James," Alexandra called out, knowing her husband too well. Family first, then innovations. As the sun set over their expanded fields, the solar lights Emma designed twinkled to life. Friends, family, and students gathered around tables laden with Martha's cooking and Alexandra's surprisingly successful attempts at Sarah's recipes. Sophie's butterflies danced above the gardens, and in the gentle evening breeze, everything they'd built together seemed to glow with possibility. "Thank you," Alexandra whispered, finding a quiet moment with Jack. "For what? For fixing my tractor, for showing me what really matters, for everything." Jack pulled her close, watching their daughters, Emma demonstrating her latest invention, Sophie sharing garden secrets with Kevin's daughter, and felt the rightness of it all. Sometimes love arrives disguised as a broken machine. Sometimes home is a place you have to leave to find again. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let your heart lead you down an unexpected road toward a future even better than the one you imagined. "Ready for another year of adventures?" Alexandra asked. Jack smiled, thinking of Sarah's words about living life fully. "With you, always."